We have breaking news coming up next on the Neoliberal Round podcast. The Philadelphia government, or the City of Philadelphia Office of Homeless Services, plans to close several of its transitional housing programs. That's according to Mr. David Fair, a former manager at the City of Philadelphia and the CYS agency chief, on that who sat down with me moments ago, which we are preparing to air for you as one of the latest episodes of the Neoliberal Round podcast. Welcome to another episode of the Neoliberal Round podcast. My name is Renaldo McKenzie, your creator and host. And today I have with me a dynamic and regular guest of the Neoliberal Round podcast. Well, he's becoming a regular guest, and we appreciate him a lot for that. My good friend and brother, Dave, and well, he's a past student of University of Penn, and so am I. We're both past students, but Mr. David Fair, welcome.
Welcome to you as well.
Yes, you are no stranger to the Neoliberal Round podcast. And how are you doing? You're looking sharp. You're looking good. How have you been?
I've been working hard.
Yes.
About all I can say.
Okay, that's good. That's good enough for. So let's delve right into it because the last time we were on the podcast, we talked about some issues in terms of homelessness, and I wanted to raise them. I'd like to welcome you to the podcast. And the last time we spoke, we delved into the pressing issue of homelessness in Philadelphia, and you emphasized the need for increased funding and the reevaluation of how the city identifies and supports the homeless population, noting that the current method may underestimate the true numbers. So today I'm eager to hear about any developments since our last conversation. And before you respond to that, let me add by saying, furthermore, I noticed your recent LinkedIn comment regarding a new bill aimed at providing a subsidy for those aging out of the foster care system. And I think we had commented on that, saying that there is a need for that as well. The bill introduced by Congressman Robert Garcia and Congresswoman Ilan Omar proposes a guaranteed basic income of $1,000 per month for young adults exiting foster care for 5 years. This initiative has the potential to significantly impact the lives of foster youth, potentially reducing youth homelessness. And you had commented about that and the demand for various support services. However, I had commented a little bit. As with any new legislation, there are questions and considerations. I understand you've expressed I have expressed skepticism about the bill's implications for homeless youth and the potential drawbacks, such as its impact on workforce participation. So I'd love to explore these aspects further with you. So welcome to the show, and it's a pleasure to have you here to discuss these crucial issues. So I don't know which one you want to tackle first.
Well, I mean, I think the youth homelessness issue is a subset of the larger issue of homelessness, especially in big cities like Philadelphia.
Yes.
Right now, the city estimates that there's about 4,700 people who are homeless in the city from all different, subsets and populations.
Understand that amount is it based on their approach to counting the people, or is it based on is it inclusive? Because we had commented about the problem of identifying homelessness by counting people based on how many people are in beds. Is that how they
it's basically a combination of the number of people in the homeless system itself getting shelter services or some other kind of services, plus what's called the point in time count, which is an attempt which picks a night in January every year and then sends volunteers out to the street to count the number of homeless people who are visible on the street.
Yes.
That's how they get to that 4,700 number. Virtually nobody, including the Office of Homeless Services, believes that that's the actual number, and that there are probably several thousand more homeless people who are not on the street that particular night, or not in the neighborhoods that the pit count, it's called the pit count point in time.
Okay.
They don't happen to be where the point in time count's being counted. So, however, the amount of resources that are provided for combating homelessness in Philadelphia really does depend on that number.
Yes.
So if there's really 7,000 homeless people in the city, which I believe is a closer number to reality, and we only fund a system that can serve 4,700 of them, we're basically accepting that there's going to be almost 3,000 homeless people that we're just not going to help at all.
Yes.
Another area of concern for me and many other people is the number of homeless people who are under the age of 24.
Okay.
There isn't a really good number. There is a youth pit count, point in time count, but it's on a different night than the adult point in time count.
Okay.
But the number they always come up with of young people living on the street is about 200.
Okay.
I think personally, because of my work around youth homeless people, I know personally more than 200 homeless young people who are living on the street. Like it's an absurd number to think that only 200 out of 4,700 are young
Yes.
people. The number that usually comes out of the pit count is about 500 young people living in shelters and other programs, and 200 living on the street. However, the school district, which does a count of its own of students attending public schools in Philadelphia who are homeless, their number of young people who are homeless is 4,200. So
that's high.
Ultimately, the issue is we've designed a system that is in and of itself incapable of addressing the problem of homelessness, because there's just, even though it's $100 million, we spend $100 million every year in the city on homelessness. About half of that is city money, the other half is federal money.
Okay.
Even with all that, we're leaving thousands of homeless people on the street.
What is causing the problem? Is it, I mean, 100 million is a lot of money. How much does it take to care for the homeless? Because I know the last time you said the budget was at 1%, but I mean, currently,
1%
they
of the total
increase
city budget.
1% of the total, if they increase it to 2%, it probably will take care of it. And I saw recently you said that I think last year it was 32 million that they approved that they give to homelessness, the city provided for homelessness. And this year you're hoping that it's another 32 million, but there's 100 million. What has been how are they spending the resources? Is it still not enough? And so if you could respond to that.
Well, most of the money is spent on homeless shelters, transitional housing. They help you find an apartment or a home for a year, maybe 2 years, and the hope is you'll be back on your feet by that time. The city itself takes about $15 million of that money to pay for its homeless staff, the Office of Homeless Services.
Yes.
I'm not totally sure about that number, but it's not that they're wasting the money. It's that it's just not enough money.
Yes.
There was a report last year that if the city spent an additional $60 million, which would be double, basically more than double what it's currently spending, and put that money in actual housing for homeless people, with the combination of the $100 million already being spent, we could resolve the problem of homelessness for the vast majority of people. I don't know how scientific study that was. I think it's a good idea to put another $60 million into transitional housing and shelters and permanent housing.
Yes.
It's not an unsolvable problem. I mean, the numbers we're talking about are big numbers when you think about how many of these people are homeless. But compared to some of the other major crises facing society, if we simply spent, instead of 1% of the city budget, 1.5% of the city budget on ending homelessness, we would come very close to ending homelessness. And that's the bottom line.
Sorry about that. No, I'm fixing an issue here. There we go. I've removed the issue. So there. Okay. So you said the problem doesn't have to do with the how the money is being spent. You said it has to do with the fact that you still need more funding available. Yes.
If we spent another 50% of what we're spending now,
Yeah.
the general consensus is that the homelessness problem we have now could be solved.
Okay.
That doesn't mean there doesn't continue to be homeless people, but that there would be a response designed to help that each individual person who's homeless, each family that's homeless, a response that is actually equal to the task of getting them off the street and into some stable housing. That we wouldn't have to have homeless people panhandling on the street, or living under train trestles, or young people moving house to house, couch to couch. That we wouldn't have to have all those crises. That we could solve the problem by just a little bit more money, 1/2 of 1% of the city's $6.4 billion budget. If we spent that 1/2 of 1%, 1.5 of 1% in the homeless issue, then we would not have the problem of homelessness in Philadelphia. It's that simple.
Okay, and I think I get what you're saying now. I think it just occurred to me because you did say that, because yes, we get all this money, but a lot of it is for transitional housing or shelters. And the last time, yeah, we did say that shelters does not really address the issue of homelessness. It's just a temporary fix. It doesn't deal with permanency. So permanency is really what you are talking about, and stability.
That's correct.
Okay, and you mentioned the fact that we can segue into the recent report about this new initiative by Congressman Omar and Garcia. You did say that that's a bold initiative. It provides income or some stipend or subsidy to young people who are aging out of the foster care system or the CYS system. And could you talk a little bit about that?
Basically, their proposal is that of the hundreds of thousands of foster youth who age out of the system every year nationally and end up being homeless, we wind up spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on each one of them, with all the various temporary solutions that we come up with. What they're saying is that if we guaranteed a youth who aged out of the foster care system 5 years of rental assistance, so that they could stabilize, so they could go back to school if necessary, learn a job, get job training, whatever it is they would need to stabilize, that would at least eliminate or go a long ways towards eliminating the problem of youth homelessness, the 17 to 24-year-old population. That's a population that nobody really knows what to do with today. That they're too old to be serviced out of the children and youth system. They're too young to fit neatly into the adult system. It's an in-between time. We used to call them opportunity youth, the kids in that category. And that 17 to 24 group needs a response that's designed for young people who are 17 to 24, not one that's designed for older adults or one who's designed for younger children, but one designed specifically for the 17 to 24 group. And their particular solution was, and they believed it was affordable under the multi-trillion, the $30 trillion federal budget, that we could spend $1,000 a month to find a small apartment or a room or a larger apartment if kids want to live together, and pay for that rent for 5 years, which would be enough to actually convince landlords to rent to these young people, because there is also a lot of resistance from landlords to rent to young people. But if they knew they had 5 years of guaranteed rent, that we could eliminate the homelessness issue, at least among youth aging out of the foster care system. In Philadelphia, the University of Chicago, about 7 years ago, and this was a while ago, before the pandemic,
Yeah.
did a study of youth homelessness in Philadelphia, and they projected that 40% of the homeless youth who were on the street were youth who had grown up in the foster care system, which basically means that we as a community, through the foster care program, raise these children, and then at the age of 18, we abandon them to the street. 40% of the total number of homeless people, which is homeless young people, which is projected to be somewhere around 2,500. That's hundreds and hundreds of kids who we raised in our foster care system, who we let become homeless when the children's money ran out.
Yeah.
The Congress people are suggesting that if they were able to automatically get a place to live, it wouldn't be foster care. It wouldn't be that they were getting a whole array of other services or new services. They would get the same services they would get normally, but they would have a stable place to live. Having a stable place to live is essential to almost everything you have to do in your life.
Yes,
if you don't have a stable based place to live, you're not going to get your act together. And so, even though their proposal has very little chance of going anywhere, the reality is it's a common sense solution, because $1,000 a month in Philadelphia, $1,000 a month for the 400 or 500 kids who age out of the foster care into homelessness every year is I don't know how much that is, but it's a manageable amount of money to keep them off the street and to help them get a job and help them be stable.
Yes, it's quite an interesting. I am listening to you, and there's a lot of stuff going through my head about the issue of stability, but the issue of social skill. When I was in Jamaica, I was the I was the national guidance, the national career counselor for the National Youth Service. Israel has a national youth service program. Brazil has a national youth service program. It's not necessarily catered towards people in foster care. Oh, sorry, but to anyone actually. Once you get to the age of 17 and you leave high school, they provide what is known as, and I also work as the deputy manager for the Jamaica Values and Attitudes Program. And they both, the National Youth Service and the Jamaica Values and Attitudes Program, work together to help to respond to the gap between there are people who don't necessarily leave from high school and go straight to college or to sixth form in some cases. So between that gap, the country and other countries, they provide a means to help to prepare for the student, to prepare the young people between 17 and 24, developing professional skills. A lot we see there's in terms of issue of professional skills. There's also developing social skills, developing connections with people in their community. I interviewed a young man on one of our podcasts, the last podcast episode, What's Your Story, Part 6. He talked about being in the foster care system, and then he went to jail, but then he was able to move from jail and find his but then he talked about the issue of connections, not having connections, and the connections not being strong. And I talked about, so I'm thinking, I think we have to have a comprehensive care, a comprehensive plan, a comprehensive policy that deals with stability, but also professionalism, developing connections, look at the foster care system and how we are developing our children what competencies and skills when they should have by the time they get to 17 and age out, and find not all of them go to college. Is there a national volunteer program or a community volunteer program or or a values and attitudes program coupled with a youth service program that help them to develop service, but also prepare them for professionalism, and then we work together with corporate to develop programs and say, or a position for them. These jobs. This is what you're going to get. We're going to pay you a stipend, and you so on. Is there something like that we can
absolutely
consider?
mostly I mean most young people in the United States grow up in a family. By the time they're 16, 17, 18, hopefully they still have both their parents. But even if they have one parent, they have aunts, they have uncles, they have people around them who can help them make the transition. That's why we use the term transition from being a young person to being a young adult. The vast majority of those of us who've found some kind of stability in our lives found that stability because we had the support of our family and the network that family interacted with. What we're talking about here, especially for youth coming out of the foster care system, is that they have none of that. They have none of that. They might luck out and have a foster parent who's willing to go the extra mile even after they're no longer in the foster care system. But that's not the way it usually works. Usually it works. The kid becomes independent at the age of 18 or 21 in some instances, and they're on their own. They're on their own. There is no adult making a phone call to somebody to see if they could get them a part-time job. There's no one for them to come and talk to about the stress that they're feeling at not being able to do well in school or find their way in school. They have nobody. And those are the kids who end up out on the street because they had nobody holding their hands, nobody to hug when they had a bad day. And all of the programs that we talk about that we never seem to want to fund are about putting an adult somewhere in the course of that kid's life whose job it is to help them get their act together, just like a parent. Where I work, Turning Points for Children has a program called Life Set, and its specific purpose is to fill the role of a parent for a child who's aging out of the foster care system who doesn't have a parent. And we're very successful in helping these kids get their act together and stabilize and get jobs and go to school and take care of themselves, find a stable place to live. Because we're basically pretending we'll be your parent.
Yes,
we'll and we'll do that and we only do it for 9 months before we have to let them go. But even that 9 months can make all the difference in the world to some of these kids. The vast majority of kids that I've met who are living on the street or in some kind of homeless situation, living couch to couch, that's all they're looking for. They're looking for is an adult who's going to look out for them.
Yes. But we need, I'm thinking I remember one time I did a podcast episode, and I really give God thanks and I appreciate this podcast. I don't want to sound too religious. Somebody said, "Why do you make your podcast sound too religious?" We are very dynamic, but one gentleman said that we need a fathers movement. We need fathers, and I said to somebody, probably that's what we call mentors. We call them mentors, role models, and so on. And there is so much more we can do, and it needs funding and political will. What do you think? We have a new mayor now in place in Philadelphia. I don't know what she has done from where you sit, what is being done from where you are, and just so you know, for people who are listening or watching, David Fair is a former manager for the city of Philadelphia. He has been very involved at the highest levels in Philadelphia, and so he's at a very good position. He also works on the board of several young youth and homeless initiatives in Philadelphia. So he comes with a lot of credentials. Yes, if he could.
Well, it's too early to know how Mayor Parker is going to do. To this date, he has not said very much about the homeless issue.
Yeah.
The woman who had been running the Office of Homeless Services left shortly after, or maybe even before Mayor Parker was
Yes,
there.
I saw that she had either resigned or something of the sort. Yes.
Yeah. She had, I don't know, I don't know anything about what actually happened, but the
Yes.
bottom line is that the Office of Homeless Services had spent $25 million more than it was budgeted last year.
Oh,
And it was shortly after that came out that the former director resigned. So I'm assuming there's some relationship between those two factors. But now we have a homeless program that's $25 million in the red.
oh, wow.
And that's already turning out to be a real problem. We just recently, people like myself in the community working with the Office of Homeless Services, were able to get an $8 million grant from the federal government specifically to support youth homeless services. And they have that grant was over a year ago now that we got that grant. So far, they've only spent a couple of $1 million of that, and they spent it on rental assistance because that's the fastest way to get people off the street is to get
Yeah.
them a place to live. So I agree that that's the right thing to do, but there's still $6 million left. And it's right now, they don't seem to have a plan on what to do with that $6 million. Just the other day, I learned that a number of the transitional housing programs that the city already has, already funds, are going to be asked to close by the end of the fiscal year, by this summer, because the city apparently decided that because of the loss of $25 million and because they have this new youth money coming in, they're going to do something new with the new youth money and close the programs that are already there for young people. It's like it's like we're moving backwards.
Yes,
It
yes,
makes no
yes.
sense. No, I
So
don't
that
know.
yeah.
I don't know exactly what's going on, and there might be more to it than what I was told. But I was told
Yes.
that there are something like 5 transitional housing programs specifically for young people that have been informed that they have to close by the end of June. And my fear is that the city will say, well, we have this new money from the feds coming in, so we can stop spending the money we were already spending. And we wanted the $8 million to be on top of what they were already spending, not in place of. That doesn't move us
Yeah.
forward if you just
Yeah.
replace the money.
Right, because this was the money coming in. Is that the same money for the that Omar is talking, the aging out people who are aging out?
No. That was
Something
it's a
different.
different system. What she proposed is a proposal. It's
Okay.
not
Okay.
it's not adopted yet, and I
Yes.
don't think
Yes.
it will. I don't think it will be, to be honest.
Why do you think so? Well, I was saying that people might think about it as another social welfare, or as soon as these people leave one system, we are facilitating the development of social welfare and making them dependent on the system in a sense. I don't know if people that will be the pushback. Um,
Well, I don't. I mean, it depends on how it was used. I think if it's,
okay.
I don't. That would be an argument for not ever helping
Yes.
anybody.
Yes. Yes.
They might get dependent on it, and they won't take care of themselves. I mean,
Yes. Yes.
I don't know very many people who, especially young people, who want to be involved with the government bureaucracy for the rest of their lives,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
living off of what is never enough money to be
Yeah.
able to do anything with your life. $1,000 a month in in Congresswoman Omar's bill in most cities around the country would not even get you an apartment.
Yes. Yes.
So or if it does, it's all just going to be used up on the rent and utilities. And if nobody's helping you get a job, or if
Right.
you're not going back to school or whatever, your life is still going to be a mess. So it sounds like a lot when you think of all the homeless people getting $1,000 a month. But
Yes.
if it's going to their apartment, all we're really doing is letting them stabilize a place to live, while on their own they get the rest of their act together.
Yes. So you talk about this new transitional program that is closing by June. That means people who are
People are going to be homeless.
people
People
are
who
going
are
to be
living in
homeless.
those
Those who are
programs
right,
are
the
going to
kids
be
who are
homeless.
transitioning out of are aging out and so on, or people who need that service. What's going to happen to all of these people?
And many of them are young women with children.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's not clear what's going to happen to them.
Yes.
The city very frequently will make an announcement that it's no longer going to fund something, and that makes somebody homeless, and they
Yes.
just send them back into line for
Yes.
homeless services. They don't seem to care that they had stabilized this family and given them a real chance, and now they're pulling the rug out from under them.
Wow. And then I'm pointing to some new program pointing to some new funding, and they haven't prepared a program yet that would probably
That's
replace
right.
those people coming in. Shouldn't they prepare the programming first and then talk about
You
closing the
would think.
transition?
You would think. I mean, I predict that what could well happen is we're supposed to have $6 million left of what's called the Youth
Yes.
Homeless Demonstration money, the federal money that we just got. I bet that the programs they're saying they're going to close now probably cost $6 million.
Okay.
So since they're telling them they're going to close, that's going to create a crisis. Everybody's going to agree, well, we're going to have to use the new federal money to keep those programs open, which means
Yes.
that what we said we were going to do with that money, which was create a comprehensive system of care for homeless people, will not happen. It'll just be used to pay the rent, because the city has to save money, because under the previous administration and the McKenzie administration, they overspent by $25 million. Now, I have to say, that's a lot of money, especially when the city's own budget for homelessness is only $50 million. That meant they spent $75 million last year.
Yes.
And
But it was spent on,
somebody,
nothing is wrong with overspending. We are saying that homelessness was getting out of control. I can see, $25 million, them being $25 million in the red after last year, because everybody was saying that homelessness was rising and we need to deal with that. So, what?
But there wasn't $25 million of new services.
Yes.
Nobody noticed the extra spending of $25 million.
Oh, yes.
It's like it was the same system last year as it was the year before, even though they spent an extra $25 million on it.
Do you know where this went? Extra 25 million?
Nobody. Yeah. I don't know where it went. Nobody knows where it went.
Okay, so it may have been spent on something other than homelessness.
That may have been the case as
well.
Oh,
wow.
But we don't know. We're
not sure.
Just don't know. I don't know. Somebody in city government may know, but I don't know.
Yeah.
But whatever it is, the bottom line is these are, in the big picture, the city has a $6.7 billion budget. In the big picture, adding another $50 million to the OHS budget, forgetting the extra 25, that's an aberration. Adding another $50 million, according to the studies, will get the vast majority of street homeless people off the street.
Yes.
And that's what everybody wants to see.
Yes.
But we don't do it. We don't spend the money that way. If they ask me what to do, that's what I'm going to tell them to do. Put $50 million and get the people off the street. Because if we get the people off the street, we will have solved the worst aspects of homelessness in Philadelphia.
Because homelessness stems from a lack of resources, money. People that don't have money, and that's where it stems from. So, there's also the child, youth, and family issues in our society, which is mounting. And as we wrap up, yes, we're getting ready to wrap up. Any final words? And by the way, congratulations. Although we didn't mention it, but congratulations, David, on your new role. You were promoted as the new chief at Turning Point. So congratulations. But you are not here speaking on behalf of Turning Point. Let me just get that Let me just make that clear, okay?
Thank
He's
you. Thank
speaking
you so
here
much.
as
I don't want
someone.
to get into trouble either.
Yes, yes, very good friend of mine, a past student, a colleague from alma mater from University of Penn, and a mind that and a brain that we want to pick because he has been very involved in Philadelphia, and it's Black History Month. He's also been very involved in Black history in Philadelphia, particularly helping to fight for the rights, healthcare rights for people dealing with HIV/AIDS in the African American community in the 80s, 90s. Yes.
Yes, yes.
What's up with that movie? HBO doing that, The Eyes and the Prize. Did they ever release that?
Now they're still filming. It's a series.
Okay,
so
okay.
It takes a while to finish it, but when it does come out, the first one that they put on television is going to be about Philadelphia and the fight against AIDS in the 1980s.
Yes,
so
yes.
Hopefully that'll be relatively soon. I haven't heard from them for a while.
And as we wrap up, you know what today is? Is today Super Bowl day?
Yes, it is.
It's today at 6:30. What's your prediction?
We're not in it, so I'm not going to watch.
Oh, well, I mean, do you know who are the two teams playing? I know the Chiefs, yes?
It's the Kansas City Chiefs against the San Francisco 49ers.
49. I predicted them to be in the finals.
The Kansas City Chiefs are the ones who beat the Eagles last year, so I'm favoring the 49ers.
49ers, yes. 49ers, their defense is next to none. I had the 49ers on my fantasy team. They were my defense. And Herbert from Kansas City Chiefs was my kicker. But well, let's see who's gonna win. Who do you predict gonna win? But so you want 49ers to win, but do you think they have a chance?
No.
Well, let's see. We'll know in about 6 hours. Okay. But thank you so much. The next time we're doing a new series called What's Your Story? And we don't have time for that. The next time I bring you on, I would love to find out. I'll ask you just simply, what's your story? I would love to share your story. As I said just a few minutes ago, you have a lot to say. You have a great mind and a history, and we would love to also find out what's your story. Somebody might be inspired by your story.
I don't know about that, but I appreciate the opportunity.
And I appreciate you coming on the show. I really appreciate you a lot. And thank you so much, guys, for and watching the Neoliberal Round podcast. Just so you know, we are available on any stream. Subscribe for free at anchor.fm/the Neoliberal. And just so you know, you can support us. Support the show, donate to the show. And we need your donation because we want to develop our programming, develop our tools and our content. And there's a lot that we are doing and our research capabilities. But we are also the show is produced by the Neoliberal Corporation, which is at theneoliberal.com and renaldocmckenzie.com. We are all about serving the world today to solve tomorrow's challenges by making popular what was the monopoly. What good? Oh, and just so you know, we have a new store page. The store page, you cannot make purchases yet, but you can peruse it. It's beautiful, it's dynamic, we're working on it. store.theneoliberal.com/HTML. That's the website. And the new book, Neoliberal Globalization Reconsidered, Neo-Capitalism and the Death of Nations, is not out yet, but we are working on it. It will be out by this month. Okay? Fingers crossed. Take care, brother.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye. Good. We will know if that actually happens. But stay tuned and subscribe. Stay tuned and subscribe to the Neoliberal Round podcast on any stream, in video on YouTube at youtube.com/@Renaldo McKenzie or at Spotify, the Neoliberal Round podcast. It will be available in audio podcast on any stream. And you can find yours at Spotify for podcasters by going to anchor.fm/the Neoliberal. And please remember to support us by going to anchor.fm/the Neoliberal/support. Visit us at the Neoliberal Corporation. The Neoliberal Corporation produces the Neoliberal Round podcast, and we are at https theneoliberal.com and renaldocmckenzie.com. We're all about serving the world today to solve tomorrow's challenges by making popular what was the monopoly.